Okay, good. Okay, hi everyone who are joining us in this talk today, in this Zoom, and also people who may be watching on Facebook Live, which we share to our Facebook page, also at Gaia Ashram Facebook page. And my name is Sunisa Jamwiset Deiters. I am co-founder of Gaia Ashram Ecovillage. And we have been sharing the learning and the story of eco villages in our region or different part of the world on our platform, different platform. But now we think that it will bring more learning to the wider public if we also doing this platform on going live with people with eco villages from different eco village to talk and to share, to exchange experience for the sake of learning and supporting each other, and also for those who may be interested to also go on the journey of creating an eco village or eco community can learn something from it. And last time we have a talk with Kai from a Peace and Permaculture Dojo eco community in Japan, it was really interesting. There's so many good points and insight to learn from Kai in his context. And today we have the opportunity to learn from Kin from Vietnam, which her and Kin and her friends have been forming the dreams and the visions, and now also on the phase of realizing it on the land, creating her eco community in the beautiful mountain of Vietnam. And Kin has been involving in the global eco village network, eco village movement for some time. And she's also have been learning from the eco village design education and permaculture. So she has a lot of knowledge and experience around this area of creating a community. So our sharing today would be really interesting to hear of how she applied that knowledge and experience in creating a community, a real project as she's doing now. So let's hear from Kin. Please introduce yourselves, however you want us to know about you and give us a context. And then also please share with us the project and a community that you and your friends are creating now. What inspire you to do that, and what are your visions? What you want to achieve with this project to start with? Okay.
Okay, thank you, um, and hello to everyone. Well, I'm Keen. My Vietnamese name is Thao. Keen is like my pet name, and I'm now part of a 6-member, including me, team that started Project R in the northwest of Vietnam. We are situated three hours away from the capital, Hanoi. And I am who I am. I'm a gardener in the project. I'm the gardener, caretaker of our dogs and cats and worms and plants. And I work in environmental and ecological education in Vietnam, and also part of the Global Ecovillage Network as a network weaver. And this project, the Project R that we started, it's officially started more than 2 years ago, and then we moved to live on the land that we pool our resource together to buy since January 2022. So it's really new. Like if you compare it to other communities in the Global Ecovillage Network, we're very new. We're like new kid on the block. But I think each of our members has our own journey that took us here to started something together. We all come from different backgrounds. We have an architect, a wildlife conservationist, environmental researcher, a project management person, and someone who worked as like organizations facilitator. So we all have many different backgrounds, but I can maybe just speak for my own story. I got to know about the concept of eco-village or intentional communities in 2016, when I actually met for the first time in Gaia Ashram in the Ecovillage design education course, and got to live the experience of how an intentional community is like in Gaia Ashram, and it was very inspiring for me. I was also at a point in my life where I was kind of having a small existential crisis of questioning, what am I doing, and what I really want to do with my life and stuff like that. So I think it all comes in good time, and the experience at Gaia Ashram and with the EDE really inspired me to create some similar experiments in Vietnam. But it was like what 9 years, almost 9 years ago, and only until 2002 that I actually got to find this group and started the journey together. So it took some time. When I started learning about Ecovillage until I actually start my own community building project. And during that time, there was also a lot of different exploration and trying different things. But I'm really happy that now we have a team, a small team of 6 people, but we feel really connected together. And since we started the project until now, the connection is growing really strongly and beautifully together with the members of the team, but also with the land that we're on, and the people who are supporting us, like our friends, families, and relatives circles as well. Maybe I stop there first. And you need to unmute.
Thank you for the introductions. And can you elaborate more how you come up with this group of friends, and what is your vision? You want to create a bigger community with more people involved, or you want to what is your plan with in terms of the group of people that you are wanting to creating this with?
Yeah. So at the moment we have 6 members in the team. We don't really set ourselves a target of having to grow bigger or not. We really are just sensing as we go. And but we are very open to welcome new member who are aligned with us and our vision. Each of us has our own dream, but when we started the project, we came together. We had kind of like a internal retreat where we were spending 2 days together, went through this process that we call the dreaming circle. It's part of the dragon dreaming process, if someone is familiar. So we share about our dream, we share about our journey, and what we want to see, how we want to live. And I think at the end, we really want to see this project or as a space where we can grow as a person, but also together collectively as a group. We can grow in many different ways. So we can grow our hands skills with doing hands-on learning, doing things on the land. We also can grow our connection to, like, spiritually grow our connection to the earth, to ourselves, and to each other, but also grow as like in our professional ways as well, because we see that each of us, even though we have our own focus, but any of our interests can be grown by doing this experiment on the land. So for example, we have me, myself, I do ecological education, and I really want to have an opportunity to live what I'm sharing with people and really do all of the hands-on experiment with how to live more with zero waste, how to live more energy efficient, or how to generate a piece of land, how to nurture the soil, how to also be in tune, like live a life that really in tune with the rhythm of nature. And that's my personal growing edge that I want to come into. And then my partner is an architect, and he wants to grow in this his field of how he can design, do his architecture work with the learning from nature, sort of like biomimicry, like how nature can really inspire the work of an architect, because architecture is also one of the career that if you are not mindful, you can destroy a lot in the process. And then we have someone else who want to really focus on ecosystem restoration, to really like grow local plants and bring back forests. And someone else who is interested in agriculture, and another member who's interested in really growing a harmonious life among communities in terms of like the social fabrics of a community. So each of us has really something of our own, but like coming together, we still can see that we have a common dream of we call it become better human beings. It sounds really big, but it feels really true to us, of just seeing this as an experiment so that we can learn to live better as a human.
Wow, that remind me a lot of my younger selves. The dreams, and then this process of trying to realize the dreams in our heart, in our mind, make it clear to ourselves and to each other, and a process of integrating everybody's dreams and everybody's skill together. Everybody feel that this space also hold their purpose, each individually, also collectively. That's a beautiful process. And you mentioned about you learned from the Ecovillage design education. And can you say more on what did you learn that from the Ecovillage design education, from the EDE course, that you applied in your process of creating your community? And how is it a reality of applying that knowledge from what you learn? You learned something, and then in the process of applying that knowledge, how is it? How is that? Is there a gap in that, or how is it? What went well and what doesn't work very well?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, when I did the course Ecovillage Design Education in 2016, for me at that time, the first thing that clicked was that it was very holistic, in a way that it looks into all the different aspects at once. So you look at not only, or before that, I was very focusing on the ecology part, because I came from the background of doing environmentalism and environmental education. But then I met a lot of problems in how to work with people, and how to really connect with different stakeholders in my project, in my previous work. And when I learned the Ecovillage design course, it brings out this framework where you have different entrants. You look at the social part of it, how people really can understand each other, can communicate with each other. And that's very important when starting, I think, not only community project, but like in any project, because you have to work together. You cannot just be alone and, do everything on your own. And then there's this economic aspect, which I think is still the weakest point for us. In the Ecovillage design education, we learn how to utilize different capitals, not just money, but also many other capitals. And I think we're doing quite good in acknowledging and realizing different resources that we have. But we're still far from where we really want to be more self-sufficient, and find a business model that would really sustain it for a long time. So that's one challenge for the whole team at the moment. And I think most important for me is this taking roots in the worldview, in the culture. That's a big part of the Ecovillage design as well. And I think that's kind of a aha moment for me, because when I do my work in environmental education before, I didn't really take into account this point of how I can integrate the way people see the world and see their relationship with the world into designing activities and actions. And but that's like a very strong part, because it's like our culture and our belief and our worldview, it's what running behind all our decisions in life, you know. So really pay a good attention to it. It's what I learned, and we have been sharing a lot about this in our team, and applying it, that like as one of the foundation of our project as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. I totally agree, especially about the worldview part of it. It is something very abstract. It is something unspoken. And even when you speak, it still can be quite vague and not really tangible. But once you really start to make it alive by your way of life, by your doing it, by representing those values, those worldview in your action, it become more clear to ourselves also. So when you walk on the path become clearer every day. So I think that I totally agree. I also realize the same thing as you do. And to make the gap, to how to say that in English, to make it link really in your own understanding is really need to go through this like um, day-to-day the design of day-to-day living. How do we represent our values? How do we present our vision in each everyday actions and everything that we do? So I'm really glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that what you learned from the EDE is something useful in helping to creating this.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to add one more point that just came up for me is when we learn the theory, everything makes sense, but on a theory level, right? And everything makes sense. And then when I come back after the EDE and face with like harsh reality, and a lot of things doesn't really connect with what I learned, it was challenging. And I think the part from having the knowledge to actually living and being what we were talking about, it takes practice, it takes time, and that's what it's best when you have a community to practice this with, because of course you can do all of that while still living maybe with your partner, living in the city, living alone in an apartment, but with the community setting, it's just so much easier to constantly learning and practicing and reflecting on the different things that we have learned in how to create an eco community. And I think we also are still, because we are very new, right? Our project is only 2 years old, more than 2 years old. We're still in the process of learning. And a lot of things we realize that we're still very rough. Like how to work with neighbors, for example, is a lesson that we have learned in good ways, but also in harsh ways in the past 2 years as well. And I appreciate all of that learning, because before that, everything was just so in a theory level for me. And now it's more coming into the being level.
Thank you. So yeah, when we learn from a course, we have the knowledge, but when we go through the experience, only then we understand it. And then not only understand it, it also can change us, because you go through the real experience in all sided of it, holistically, and think our whole being is involved in that process. So it's not only the learning in the mind anymore. It is also in our spirit, in our heart, in our whole being. So I think like Eco Village lifestyle is always gonna be a lifestyle of that full of learning, because to sustain this, it is really important part is about the learning, because you're gonna have a lot of challenges and struggles, because it's embrace so many layers, so many dimensions in our day-to-day living, but also it's very conscious living, like what Kin said. Everything bring into awareness and discussions, and then the bear witnessing with each other throughout the process. Yeah, I just reflecting this on our own journey as well. Okay, so another aspect is interesting to hear. You mentioned that you are on the phase of just starting. It's 2 years old project in terms of trying to establish something on the land. And I'm curious to know, how is this phase of pioneering and starting a project? I remember that when me and Tom starting Gaia Ashram like 12 years ago, it's full of like excitement. It's, even though there's a lot of things not come clear to us, but it's every day is a day of new possibilities. And of course, there's a lot of challenge in those time of pioneering also. So let's hear from Kin. How is it for you in the phase of pioneering? What are the joys of it, and then what are the challenges in this phase? And how do you embrace, how do you address those challenges?
Yeah. I don't know if community development, there's also a phase called like honeymoon phase, like in a relationship. But I feel like for me, we seems to still are in this honeymoon phase where it's very exciting when we actually get to sit together and design something. Like we learned, we have 6 members, and 2 members in the team have learned the EDE, the Ecovillage Design Education, and 3 have learned the permaculture design course. So we sit down together and try to apply what we learned into designing our project. So it's very exciting to actually look at a piece of land and also observe it through different season and see, you know, how, if I apply this learning from permaculture, how would it look like? And there's also a lot of realization that it was really fun for us. Like, for example, we have this microclimate. When we read the guides on how to read the topography, the wind, the rain, and everything for permaculture, and we realize that it's not really true to our context. It's different because we are in between mountains, and there's always microclimates in the mountain ranges. So we actually have to observe and note down the pattern of the rain, of the wind, where the strong wind in winter comes from, or where the cool wind in summer comes from. And that process of actually observing nature and working with nature, for me, is like one of the best highlights of living on the land, because it's not something that you can just read or watch YouTube videos. It's something that you cultivate, and that is also the process of building relationship with the land. That is really beautiful to have. The other thing is the relationship within the communities. I think it's also at the beginning for us, it was very nice to have a different session where we can actually share about our journey, about our opinions, how we want to do things. We held a lot of circles inside the team of 6, and we also had circles about difficult topics like our situation and relationship with money, because of course we need to work on how we're gonna work with money and contribution in the project, right? And before talking about that, we talk about our past relationship with money, if there's any like trauma experience that we had, or any pattern that we saw in ourselves when we work with resource, with money. And that conversation itself was really which was really touching for me, because I have never really had a chance to sit down and think about it or talk about it with anyone before, because in our culture in Vietnam, talking about money it's quite a taboo. Like, you don't really talk clearly about how you use your money and how much money you have and where you put it with just anyone, right? But in this case, we were really open to each other, and we also realized how diverse we are in terms of financial situation and how we deal with money. So that was also a great learning curve that we had. And if not for being in the community, I don't know if I would ever have that conversation with anyone. So that was nice. And the other perks of also being actually in a community setting, starting at the starting phase, that we at the start of everything. So we are building our first house, we're building our first toilet, our first kitchen. And this is very exciting. Like actually getting your hands on the land. We harvest bamboos on our own land to build, or we use our own urine and poop for the garden and learn how to compost it in the right way. And all of these things are very exciting still at the moment. I haven't find myself getting bored or tired of it at all. So yeah, so I think it was really nice. Challenges are there. I think the first challenge that we have is because we have 6 people, and of course, 6 people have different commitments, different priorities in life. And so the where each person can contribute or show up in the project would be different. So how we can harmonize that, so we can first build trust in each other, but also don't have anyone feeling like they're not part of the project just because at the moment they need to tend to some other priority. So that process, I think it was not a tension, but it was difficult for us at some earlier point to navigate. And then we the way that we work through it, I don't know if we have truly passed it, but we work through it by actually sit together and hold some sessions so we can talk about it, so things can be shared, not necessarily shared so that we can find solutions right away, but first just so that we in the team, we can hear each other. Because I think generally we cannot just assume that we know what the others are thinking. So holding safe space for these conversation, like sometimes difficult conversation about how challenging I'm feeling because I cannot be involved as someone else in the team. That was a difficult but a very good conversation to have. And then the second challenge was to learn how to work with neighbors, with local authorities, because all of those are very new to us. Well, our team, one thing we have in common is that we're all kind of nerdy. Like we like to read, we like to research, we like to do our passion projects, but we're not very good at actually go out and socializing and working with different stakeholders. I think that's one of our pet peeves. And working in this project, we gotta do those. We cannot say no. So actually go out and talk to the local officers and learn how our presence here can be of support, or at least not in their way. It's also a process that we need to go through, and learning the way of the locals as well, because one special case for us is that we come from another part, and we were like migrating into this area, and the local people here, they are the different minority, different ethnicity to us. So they have their own local culture, they have their own ways of doing things. So we need to really take time and go through certain incidents here and there and learn from all of those incidents to actually understand how people live here, what they believe, what they find important. And I think all of that, what's really taught me is that we need to first take time to learn and be humble, and then there might maybe some argument might happen, but we process through it together. And I think when we take it slow, like we don't make any big change or big decision at once in a fast pace, then we still have time to really observe, like how is it happening, how our presence here, what we're doing on the land is affecting our neighbors, what are they thinking about what we're doing. And then if needed, doing minor adjustment here and there, because if you're doing it slow and then the change is not too big, then the adjustment is easy. But if say we do things really fast, for example, the first year we built the first settlement on the land, at that time we haven't been able to observe the real pattern of the weather yet, because like I told you, it takes time to actually live there because of the microclimate. So we decided that we only build the first land out of bamboos. We are not going to build anything fixed or concrete, because we know that later on we'll have a chance to fix it. To, like, if this is not a good position to put the house, we'll put it somewhere else. And we know that with the bamboo structure, and the bamboo is not treated, so the house can only last for maximum 2 years, and we're okay with that. So and that was a good decision to make, because if we build a bigger house right away, we would need to bring in a bulldozer to make the street, the road, so the bulldozer can come in with the materials, and we would have built our first house in a place where there's a lot of strong wind and strong rain coming in winter. So yeah, I think we have met some challenges, but because we go slow, so nothing cannot be fixed.
Thank you. That is a quite good point, and also one of the permaculture principle. Small and slow solution. And yeah, I want to elaborate more on that point of the local people and the local culture. Do you have a vision or a plan to work with local community, or adopting some of some of their cultures, or integrating the local culture into creating your community? What is your plan of in the future with the local community?
Yeah. So with the local community, as I shared earlier, because they are Thai ethnicity, and the 6 members of the team are from the King ethnicity. So with 2 different ethnicities in Vietnam, so they have their own different culture, and learning their culture is one of our priorities in the first few years. So we don't want to make any suggestion of, like we come in and bring in this great solution or ways of doing things, but we just want to listen first and observe first, and see what they do in different season, what are the big ceremonies throughout the year for them, because it would be different from our culture. And so in the first year was mostly learning, observing, talking to people to learn. And then towards the end of the first year, we started to do some small activities. So we went with the local peoples into the forest, and to see what medicinal plants that they are picking from the forest, and what they use them for. How often would they do this foraging, and what would they do in the other parts of the year? And that was really nice. It was a learning for us too, because a lot of we don't know all of the plants in the area, so going with the locals and learning about local plants was really nice. And we have a plan of sensing into what is needed in the region and how we can play a part. So for one thing, now we are starting a project where we're building a playground for the local school, because they built a local school for children in the area, because they live far away from the school. So they usually live in the school for 5 days and only come back home at weekends. I'm not sure what they call that kind of school. but so it's basically they full time at the school, but they don't have any space to play, to hang out. So we are starting our first collaboration project with the local people here. It's this playground for the local school. And then we also know that the local area is heading toward building ecotourism. And a lot of investors from the cities are coming, building homestays, but actually like hotels, and starting to employ local peoples. And we haven't started doing anything in this part yet, but we also are observing to see if we can connect the local people with some organization that do great in community-based tourism. Maybe we can like make some connection and introduce something here. But we first want to hear and see what the local authority and the people here wants to do, like what was really their priorities first. And also in terms of like agricultural practice, we also observing, we're still in the phase of we're starting to know what are the patterns of growing in terms of agriculture here in the region, what's their main crop, and what are they using in agriculture. And we at the same time practice permaculture and regenerative agriculture on our land. I think it's gonna take a few years for us to actually show if the way that we are doing is it's bearing good fruits and having good results or not, before we can actually convince the others to move from conventional agriculture to regenerative agriculture. So that's also another way that we are looking forward to grow into. And the last area that we want to collaborate with the local people in the long term is in terms of ecosystem restoration, because a lot of the mountains around our area are now being cut down to grow staple foods, but also a lot were cut down and then abandoned. So we were thinking that maybe we can develop some models of maybe analog forestry, so like regrow forest with the local plants, local trees. Then yeah, that's also another direction that we want to go forward. So a lot in the plan for the future.
Yeah, thank you. I think from what you sharing so far, I can see that your group are taking the step where you want to observe first, and observe and interact like in the principle that we learn in permaculture, and collect a lot of information, discussions, and planning before deciding of what to do, which is like I think that would be something that is quite an obvious strength of your group. I can see that everything is well planned and discussed, and not just reaction. Okay, and then in terms of developing your community further, what else do you need to what do you need to be able to evolve your project toward your vision?
I think for us at the moment, it's the opportunity to not only learn and do, but also reflect and see where the gaps are for us and where we need to grow into. So we would have every week, every month, we have a monthly meeting of the team on strategy and what's the plan that we want to do. But at the moment, it's every end of the year, we would have like a long team retreat where we would sit down and reflect on what we have learned the last year, and where we want to grow into, like which area we want to grow and try and experiment in the next year. And I think that would be one of the important practice that we need to keep, and to maybe have more frequent of creating space for reflection and for learnings. Like you said, learning is a very important part of community living. And that there are so much, like if we think of what we want to learn, there are so much. We want to learn how to do natural dye. We want to learn how to start keeping animals on the land, because at the moment we only start with gardening, not yet having animals. We also want to learn to apply different skill and techniques in terms of natural building and energies. We want to try to create some of our wind energy system by hands, and experiment with centripetal farming. So in terms of like knowledge and skills, I think there's a lot for us to grow into, to learn. But it's also very important for us is to find ways to find space to celebrate life, to enjoy, to experience just the joy of being on the land and building the connection to the land. And we have been doing that through occasionally we have retreats for the team, and we invite friends to come. So we have sessions of walking, reading the landscape, connecting to the land, sharing stories. And I feel like for us, that's the part that the part of celebrating of art and culture, it's where we need to grow more into. And I also shared earlier in the call is the economic dimension. It's certainly not yet our strength. We still are depending a lot on a lot of our members are doing like consultancy or freelance work somewhere, so we can earn the money, and with that money we can contribute to this project. So the project itself has not been self-efficient yet, but we understand it takes time. We are only 2 years old, so but learning how to build a plan for a good business model is something that I think we have been talking with each other, that we need to learn to start strategizing for it. And this is something I think we can learn from Gaia Ashram as well, because you're very active in different fronts, different ways of creating abundance in your communities, and this is definitely something that we feel like we need to learn strongly.
Okay, thank you. And for people who are listening, if you are having any questions, you want to ask questions, you could also write down your questions on the chat, uh, or you can raise your hands. And now we're gonna open for questions, Q&A. So please feel free to fire your questions to Kim. Meanwhile, I will ask him one more questions about as Kin will also join us in the Ecovillage Design Educations next time, where we going to offer the EDE course in next year, January 5th to February 5th. And Kin will be one of the facilitators. As you can see that she has both the knowledge she learned from the Global Ecovillage Network and also from the EDE curriculum, as well as the personal experience. So I like to ask Kin while we are gathering informations from, gathering questions from people. What do you plan to bring to share with the group from what you learned? What is the subject that you are passionate about to teach and to share with the group?
Well, I personally am very passionate about building relationships, the relationships between human and nature, and then also relationship between among humans and with ourselves. And I would really love to contribute into the part where we talk about the worldview dimension, bringing in the aspect of deep ecology, how we can really see nature as with the intrinsic values that there is in every beings, and change the mindset of us dominating everything else that are not human into a more like symbiosis relationship, co-living together, not just among human, but human and nature. So that's my strong passion. And I also I'm happy to also share about the different practices that we have been having on the land in terms of agricultural, ecological practice, but also social experiments, because we have been applying many different social tools in our teams as well. And a lot of those for me, before I learned quite a lot, but now with the more in-person experience, I felt like it landed a lot more on the different tools like NVG or like how to make decision in a group, things like that. Yeah, so I'm happy to bring in any lesson learned that we have, even in very detailed oriented things like how do you choose a piece of land, or how do you manage finance in your team. I would, well, with our team's consent, I would love to bring in the insight from us, from Project OR.
Okay, thank you. Exciting. So I think like in our Ecovillage Design Education next time in January, February 2025, we'll have Kin as one of the facilitators, and also Kite from the Peace and Permaculture Dojo Eco Community, and also other facilitators and guest speakers from different Ecovillage and community to share their experience with us. So if you are interested in this course, it is here we put on the chat that the link to the information of the program. So here we have someone raise their hand to ask questions. Jürgen, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name right.
Hello,
Yes,
can you hear
please
me?
ask your question. Yes.
Thank you very much to the host and to also the speaker. This was a very nice conversation. Something I'm also very passionate about, but in the stage of not yet uh, living on the land, but trying to plan and trying to actually study. I'm currently working on a PhD to understand, firstly, the role of intentional communities as alternative to the kind of business as usual modern way of life, and in doing so asking the kind of pertinent question of what is the underlying motivations that can really, so to speak, build your team. How do you, so maybe this is the question I'd like to ask the speaker. How did you go about, in a sense, not selecting your team, but how did you attract everyone of a certain like mind, but not just like mind, but the willingness uh, to really surrender to that kind of community building? Like you said, it's not been an easy journey. That's talking about the kind of money trauma, talking about other things that will obviously affect the way in which you build together. How, may I just ask, how did that selection or that friend circle build up, if I may ask? Thank you.
Thank you. I can share from Project OR, but maybe this question on can share from Gaia Ashram as well. Because for us in Project OR, we started with 6 members, and we fortunately still have the 6 members. So we haven't added any new members to the team yet, but also we haven't lost anyone. We started, I think the way that we came together was through a process of first, a lot of our members were friends, so we share with each other our learning journey, our ambition, vision, and just quite organically, those who share the same vision. And one of the really big thread in why we come together is we want to really restore ecosystem, really learn how to give back to the earth, change our way of living firstly, and also bring our way of living from extractive into actually nurturing the land and building ecosystem, bringing back biodiversity. So that was a very strong motivation for all of us. And then each members of the team have different capacities and strength, and also in terms of experience in doing this community living. But I think one thing that we all have in common is also the openness to experiment. Like when we started, I think most of us don't really know what we're getting ourselves into, and we talk about it. We talk about how it would potentially look like. We even talk about what would happen if some of us feel like we don't belong anymore. It's not for us. Then what's the way out? If someone wants to pull out, we also talk about that too. And I think there was a lot of open to adapt, to change, to try something, and also a lot of trust as well. And I think the trust in the process and the trust in the people who are holding the process. In earlier, I also shared that in our team, we have 2 people who have joined the Ecovillage Design Education course. So we shared about the tools that we were learning, and the others was willing to try them, even though the others don't really know what that is or how it would look like. But there was this trust that I think was important in order to move things forward, and openness to change, and sharing as well, reflection. So when we try tools or try something, we would reflect, and if it doesn't work, then we try something else. I think one of the privilege for us at the beginning is also that since it's very new, we have room to experiment. And then after the experiment, we would be able to say if this is good for us or not. And like I take another example. At the moment, we use decision making in terms of how to make decision in the team. All of the big decision, it would be all consent, meaning all the 6 members say yes, then we'll do it. But if it's smaller decision making in terms of like what to do with the garden, then those who are working on the garden would have the final say. We would consult the team for their opinions, but then those who are actually working on it would have the final say, and that takes trust from the others for us in order to do that. So I think all of those elements would be important to have us starting together. But since we haven't had imported a new member yet, so it's difficult for me to answer what would be the process or the criteria. But I think having a trial period for us is important. Like if someone wants to join Project All, we would invite them to come and live with us for a while and see if this is really what they expected, if there's a clash in lifestyle or beliefs, values. If we can talk about it, then yeah. And then at the end of like maybe several months, we can navigate if this is a good decision for the new member to join us. But we haven't been to that point, so maybe that's where I should move past this to Gaia Ashram to share how is your process of having new members.
Yeah, I think this is a good question, because there's something different between Gaia Ashram and Kin community, is that Gaia Ashram started from the 2 founders, which is myself and my husband Tom. And then in the beginning, we did not even thinking that we're gonna form an eco-village. Our main motivation was ecosystem restoration, and with the strong sense of urgency that we need to act soon. We need to act now. So then we just decided that we're going to start working on the land toward this vision of creating a learning center, a space where we learn how to co-living with earth, with nature, and how to regenerate, how to be part of the regeneration process of the earth. And then we think that whoever want to join us can come later. We did not spend time to call out for people at all at that point. So we will just start acting. And like in similar process is that we start working from our strong core inside and see how it goes and learn. And then when there are more people joining us, as we are learning in that process, we also become more clear of what we are doing, and then clarify our value and our visions, and then also strategies. So eventually, when we realize that even we invite people to join us for a short time, like volunteering or internship, still we need to embrace people with strong social values, even though we are not living together permanently. So then because of that intention, then a community naturally forming also, just even when people are there for a short time, because we also implement this social dimension principle we learned from the EDE, the communication, the embracing diversities, and taking care, looking after each other. And then later on, we realized that as the project is developed, there are many areas of works that we need to do. And then to sustain this, it needs a group of people who live together more permanently. So then when I think after 5-6 years, we realizing that, and then we start calling out for people to join us. I think by the time of 5-6 years, we have come to some clarity of what Gaia Ashram project is about, its values, its cultures, its vision and mission. So then people who joining us are more like people who share that vision. So it is having its own selecting process because the culture, the way is a bit more established then. But however, we are now on the phase of transitioning from the co-founder to more the collective. So calling our people to live together more permanently is about now forming a community who would come to discuss and plan together, and then to find the decision making together. Basically, we're starting doing what Kin is doing now, which is people coming together and now start discussing again of like the decision making structures of the membership process. How can people become a member at Gaia Ashram, and what does it mean being a member at Gaia Ashram? And then design a membership structure, different level of involvement that people are involved in the project, like what Kin mentioned earlier. There's some people may be part-time, some people are full-time. And then this is the, how to say, it is a challenge, but also it's a challenge that you cannot avoid. It means it's something that is, we need to come up with a strategy to embrace that, because it is not only a community of people living together, but it's also an open learning center. People who coming in are the guests who come to learn for a short period of time, volunteers who come to learn with by doing, and interns, and people who are involved in the part-time. So how can we create a structure that embrace different group of people, so people don't feel, everyone feel like they're part of it, no one feel less than others, and then it feel fair and for the everyone else. So holding that kind of structures, creating that structure, we are in the phase of that, creating that structures and holding and establishing it. So then when it's established, it's become, that's the way it is. I think but still we are in this phase of opening and discussing. We have to start, not to start all over again, but pretty much like that, in terms of forming a collective group of people who are who will be, you know, it will be the succession from the successional process from coming from the co-founders to the collective. We are on that process. So now me and Tom is slowly passing on, and then share the power in decision making with the group, and then give more space to others to step in the leadership. So that's where we are now. I saw Jürgen also raise his hand again, and you also raised your hand, Kim.
Oh, I just want to add one point
Yes, please.
that came up for me, and maybe Jürgen can share if it address his question. I think because we are always in relationship between people in the community, but also people and nature. So I think we ourselves are a filter to people who are coming. Like the members of the team, the member who are there, the way we live, our beings, how we portray ourselves to the one who comes, are already in itself a filter. So people won't come and sense if this is what I really want to be a part of. And for us, we also had the experience that the land plays the role of the filter, because we in the past had two friends who we really love, and they also really like our project and want to be with us. But one point was challenging for them is that because our land is on about 1,000 in high altitude, there are certain plants and veggies you cannot grow in our region. And there are also other certain plants and veggies that are more suitable for this region. And that one of the big part of the decision why our friends didn't join us, because they prefer to be in a warmer climate, a lower altitude, where they can grow a lot more diverse veggies and plants, because they want to focus on gardening and farming. So I think that's also one point. Like once you have a piece of land, you started, or you have a few people who started, they themselves with the land will start performing as a layer of a filter for whoever that wants to be part of the team.
Yes, that's very true. It is like when you create your own reality, people who come, they would also feel that is that something that is they see themselves being part of or not. I mean, both ecologically, socially, and culturally as well. I think in the past 12 years, it's worked well in terms of when people come and then they realize this is something they want to be part of, or this is not. So we didn't have to we didn't have to ask people to say like this is not a suitable place for you so much. People realize it themselves, and then yeah, and we have practically we have a process of selection also. That first people would join us in our Ecovillage lifestyle week. So 1 week of learning about Ecovillage lifestyle in theory and also in experiential learning in that 1 week, which they will understand the principle behind our lifestyle at Gaia Ashram. So if after that 1 week they feel like, okay, this is kind of something I want to explore further, I feel the call to it, and they want to pursue the part of becoming the member, they would join after the Ecovillage week, and then they could join the volunteering and internship program, the short-term internship program, which is a 3 month program where they would explore deeper in different area of Gaia Ashram. As volunteer, they will do everything in every area. And then as internship to choose their area of interest or passions that they want to take more managerial role on. To become part of the community, that means you need to have a role in the community. You have to find your place in it. How do you contribute to it? Not only how the community contribute to your personal life, to your need or to your goal, but also how is your goal, your personal learning journey, and can contribute to the whole, to the healthy community. And once that become realized, and all the members agree that yes, we need this person to be part of our group, and then they will be accepted after 1 year of experiencing living at Gaia Ashram. So that is like in the practical process. Now we are extending our community in terms of physical design. We have a piece of land that is designed to be residential area for long-term residents, away from the Gaia Ashram Learning Center, which will be the cultural and learning center area, and then the residential area is a bit outside of it. So then we could have a more solid permanent community member kind of energy. So that is also what we learned throughout these years, that to establish the community in a transient open space, it's important that the community member have their own, space that they could continue to connect with each other and feel grounded. Because being a learning center, you always have short-term energies coming in, and that could be that can be challenging to establish a permanent energy. Okay, is there any other questions to ask Kin or about Gaia Ashram? Jürgen, you still have a question you want to, or you want to add on any comment?
Thank you. I think my hand was raised from earlier, but if you will allow me, I'll ask maybe just a follow-up because, and thank you for both sharing on those points. And maybe what I could ask is now, how has, and of course you both been integral in the kind of founding of your communities, but how has the process of learning, of obviously being convinced about it, being obviously before you engaged and embarked on this community journey, you had a certain feeling, a certain calling. How has that translated, or how much of what you have done now is as a result of that inner calling, and how then do we cultivate it as an individual looking to also cultivate that inner calling such that I can also bring about some physical manifestation, if that makes sense? So how has that spiritual inward journey of you realizing this is what I want to do with my life translated for you into the manifest reality that it is now? Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Beautiful question. Okay, Kin, go ahead.
Yeah, I love that question too. I think for me, in order to really hear the calling from myself and let it lead the way, you really need to make space in your life for that to emerge. Because before I embarked on this journey, before the mark of that turning year 2016, before I joined the Ecovillage design course, I also had a lot of dreams and a lot of passion, a lot of idea about what I want to do, but I swamped myself with projects, with works, with deadlines, with to-do list, and I hardly ever had the chance to actually sit down and reflect with myself and listen to what is my inner voice saying. Am I happy with doing this, or it's just because I thought this is good, then I just keep going? But the 1 month, or that was 5 weeks at Gaia Ashram, was the first time in a long time that I had space to have conversations with myself and be in nature and reflect my story, my journey among nature. So I think that was a very decisive, determining moment for me. Like really make space to hear that inner voice, and by making space, I really meant like you can use many different kind of practice nowadays. There's a lot of mindfulness practice and different personal practice, but like make space in your mind and in your heart and in your like really time and space, physical space, so that you can sit down and tune in with yourself and with your surrounding, be it an apartment, a city, or nature, like a forest, a farm. Because I think we are now getting lost in this area of productivity and fast pace, and there's so much that is trying to steal our attention. So we couldn't really hear or see or sense that the more subtle energy of the voice coming from within, or actually the voice coming from interacting with our space, our environment. I think for me, it's no matter where I am, I think the most important thing is to intentionally create that space to just like chill, sit down, have some stillness, and reflect. Yeah, that would be my answer. You wanna share yours?
Thank you. If I would sum up, I think coming from the feeling of gratitude and honor, I think I feel really honored to be alive and experiencing life. And I'm grateful for everything that make every moment of my life possible. There's a time where I realized this, that I am so grateful to be alive and experiencing life in every moment and reflecting back of what what is that make this possible? What is that make my life possible? And I want to, and then I strategically choose to be somewhere that I will be most useful to life, to earth, to the people who I'm grateful for. That's why I choose to go back to my home village. I'm grateful for my village that raised me. I grew up in a, rural village, isolated from the rest of the world. In my childhood, that was my whole world because there was no television or no means to go out so much. So my whole life was in the village, and then I experienced how the community raised me and educated me and looked after me and all other children. And they feed me also because everyone have to work together to farm because you don't have any tools, you only have hands, many hands, and everyone have to help everyone else. So then you realize that you are being fed by the whole farming community and being looked after. And then when go to school, the parents are also there to teach at the school. So I feel really grateful for my village. So I chose to go back to my village. And after all this learning journey of my personal journey, exploring spirituality and the knowledge that I'm interested in, I ask myself, is that something it can be used to serve my people and then my village? And then learning Ecovillage design education, I also realized that my village was an Ecovillage. So I think like going back there to how can I work to empower the treasures that we have, and also adding into what is lacking for the people. And so that is the first calling. And then also the land that we choose to do Gaia Ashram project is a dry land, rice field that is not even productive in when producing rice. And then when we were there at the dry season where everything looked so, dried and sad and brown and lack of life, and that also a calling of I could be of use here. I could be useful here. And it will be an honor to not only observing the beauty of nature somewhere, but being somewhere to be part of creating that beauty. That is an honor of 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 being alive, I guess. And so then that is like it was strong. So that's why I said that we didn't wait to or call out for people to join us. We will start with what we have, with the energy we have and with the knowledge that we have and with the resources that we have, and that we can start something. And if this is the right thing, then if it's something meant to happen, if it's something the earth needs, and then it should happen more. There will be people who will joining us. So that is the if I would sum up this in the inner calling part, it will be the sense of gratitude and honor. that that is the energy that I use to do anything. And I think the more doing that with that energy, the more you have that energy. So I think that it's empowering as well as impacting. I think that's what I have in my vision. Okay, so yeah, we always happy to answer these questions because it's a way of reconnecting and reminding ourselves when we talk about it. every time the answer may be being presented in a different forms, but the key and the core is always the same seeds. So, so anyone else has any question? We still can go for maybe 10 more minutes before we close the session.
There's a question in the chat from actually one of my friend who visited the project hall
Okay.
before about how's the garden.
Yeah, how is the garden, Kin?
The garden is well, I think the garden is growing in their own way. And when we was here, we was at the beginning, and the land that we are on was used for growing staple foods, monoculture staple foods with inorganic fertilizer for a very long time. So it's very hard. There's hardly any life in the soil. When we dig the soil, it's like no earthworm. It was like rock. It was very lack of life. It's not no life, but it's like lack of life. And now I think life is coming back to the soil and to the garden. And the time that working with the garden has always been my learning time, because I also learned to drop a lot of my needs to control and my needs to see results, and learning to let the garden has its rhythm. A lot of the plants took a really long time at the beginning to take roots, but once it's built its foundation, now it's growing really well. Usually in Vietnam, people always say that first when we start a garden, we should start with planting bananas. Banana is very easy to grow, but it was not the case on our land. We planted bananas and it took like half a year, and the banana is still very small. It's still very, very it seems like still not very happy, the bananas that we first planted. But now after a year and a half or 2 years, they are all growing really strong and healthy and making babies. And it's just that we need to let them have the time that they need. So that's the lesson that I learned, because in the first few months I was like, why on our friend's land bananas are growing like crazy, but here it's not? And why about same with other plants that we were growing? We were a bit impatient at the beginning, and then that was the lesson learned. Now I think with more organic materials being returned back to the land, the soil is healthier, so the garden is also more happy. Thanks, V, for the question.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one thing I want to explore also in terms of food and gardening is that we live if we base ourselves in a certain area where certain plants and vegetations are growing, it is also about, can we learn can we learn to eat and consume what is growing there as a way to be part of that bioregion. So I think this is something I have in mind of exploring. Would it be possible? Is there what we have in the area have enough diversities
Yeah.
to sustain us? And then if that could happen, I think it will make it at a deeper level rewilding inside of us also, as we really part of what is happening there.
Yep.
And then the output from us is also part of what's happening there, going back to that. So yeah, just thinking when talk about gardening, I think there's a lot to learn about that, like Kin said, at different level, ecological and tangible level, or we can go deeper at the deeper level also in everything. So these 4 dimensions of the eco-village design educations, social, ecology, economic, and worldview, it is, even though it being divided into different aspects, different look, but actually there is the essence of other aspect in every aspect. I mean, there is one in all and all in one, and we can go deep in everything, and everything that is deep, we can manifest it as a very tangible level. So, so I think that what I learned throughout these years, the art of holistic lifestyle, we divide it to see, but to live, it is about integrating it all together. Okay, so is there any other questions? Uh, all right, so if you don't have any other questions, maybe we give Kin the last words of what do you think, like something that you learned throughout this year, not only during your time of establishing, not only this past 2 years, but even before it lead to this point. What is important thing that you learned about dreaming and realizing the dreams? I think like how can we bridge from the dream, from the calling to the action, to the reality? What is important thing that you learned about that?
Well, one thing I mentioned earlier, and I think I still want to re-emphasize, is to start somewhere, but start small and slow. I feel like that's a big learning that is just keep coming up when we are doing our project, even when it comes to building or it's come to gardening or experimenting some social tools within us. Well, maybe because of the nature of our team, we have a team of 6 people that are very earthy, very grounded. We want things to be sure. We hardly ever take any rush decision. So we usually study something very carefully before we actually do it. Well, and I just want to honor this because there are many different ways of approaching things. But something we also learn is that sometimes we need to move from the part of studying, researching, into actually implementing and learn from that implementation, that experiment, because we have the tendency to think a lot. I mean, we as like the member in our project, because we love to think, we would love to learn. So we plan and think a lot before we actually doing it. But the learning accelerate when we start to do. So that's one thing that I find really beautiful in actually starting a project and having the opportunity to turn many things in theory into practice. And the other thing I feel like for us, all of the journey that we have been through, while doing so, it gives me a sense of how small but beautiful my role is in this web of relationship on the land. Because I feel like every day I am reminded of how beautiful nature is, the land is, and how things are working miraculously, without our notice, without our acknowledgement of it. So now that I get the chance to be part, I feel a lot of humility that has grown in this process of where I am in the relationship with the land. And that's also why we decided to name our project R, because we want to really cultivate more and more moments of awe in our life where we feel like, wow, this is big and we're so happy to be part of it. This is something new that we learn. So we haven't known everything yet. We don't have everything on our hands, but we want to keep going, keep learning. So that learning mindset, I think it's very healthy for us at this phase, community.
Thank you, Kin. Thank you. So there are so much to learn. I mean, in Gaia Ashram is like 12 years old project. I think it's still very young in terms of establishing an eco village. comparing to communities around the world, existing community around the world that establishing their culture and the way of life through many generations. Although, but it a lot of learning living like this in 10 years. There's so much learning. In 2 years at kin sharing, it's also a lot of learning. So there is this eco-village lifestyle where we consciously learn, imagining every day, every moment, you taking it with full presence and consciousness, and imagining how rich is that even in one day. And our life in eco-village, in this kind of lifestyle, it feels like days and months and year pass so fast because you are all in the moment and you're not even aware that, oh, months has passed, year has passed. Our sense of time becoming to the plants are growing, the plants are dying, watering the plant, taking care of the plant, eating, taking care of our waste. This is our time of which is how things flow in our day. So much to learn. So I think like if you are curious about how to create an eco village, how to create eco community, want to learn many tools to hold the social dimension of your project, ecological dimension, economic dimension, and worldview or spiritual or cultural dimensions. We invite you to join us in the Eco Village Design Education or EDE course, which we will offer in next year, January, February. There's a website page link here that the admin put. And Kin will be one of the facilitators, I myself also, and also the Gaia Ashram team, as well as the other facilitators from other communities, like Kai from Japan. And also we intend to invite guest teachers from different eco-village to share with us their wisdom also. We also will learn from local communities that we've been working with in the village, and also have some exposure trip to visit other existing local communities, learning from the local people how they embraced the eco-village principles in their own way, in their traditional way, or in their new way, in the new time of the world. So if you are curious, just look at a link and then send us emails for any inquiries. And next time we will have another interview with some eco villages from other eco village. We haven't have the final um, information. Yes, what will be the next, which community will be the next on the next interview, but stay tuned on our Facebook page, or we will send you the information of our next talk, which I'm sure that you will be learning a lot from the next example also. So for today, thank you very much, everyone who stayed together. It feels very warm in the heart. We are really passionate to talk about this. And it's always great to talk to people who want to listen to it. So thank you for staying together. I hope to see you next time. So bye for now.
Thank you, I'm
Thank
very
you.
excited for the EDE, for more and more learnings.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you too.